Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I'm your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 217, and we are going to take a look at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Very interesting here. But before we dive in, let me give a big shout out to my listeners because we love to see you guys. We pray for you and we love you very much. So a big shout out to Oklahoma, California, New York, Virginia, Texas, Pennsylvania, British Columbia, Florida, Illinois and Georgia, Oregon, West Virginia, Indiana, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Ohio, Minnesota, Alabama, Nebraska, Washington, Colorado, District of Columbia, also known as DC, aka the swamp. Let's drain that swamp, people. Come on, let's go. Next state is Mississippi, Tennessee, Rhode Island, Kansas, Louisiana, North Carolina, Nevada, Maryland, Utah, Michigan, Iowa, Alberta, New Brunswick, Wisconsin, Connecticut, Manitoba, Hawaii, and Newfoundland and Labrador. In terms of countries, Uzbekistan, Japan, Denmark, Slovakia, South Africa, Australia, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, the Russian Federation, Canada, the United States, Iran, and Palestine. Good to see all of you. Okay, so this podcast is growing. I love to see you guys. Okay, so we are taking a look at the Defense Intelligence Agency. So this was formed October 1st, 1961. They are headquartered in Washington, D.C., and their motto is committed to excellence in defense of the nation. Very interesting there. They have about 16,500 employees. Get this, their budget is classified. So that tells you they don't want you to know what they're doing with your money, so it needs to be declassified. There are many things within our federal government that needs to be declassified because we, the people, are paying for this. So being that it's our tax dollars, they have the responsibility to be open and honest with us, and it's very important to have honesty and integrity and transparency. So unfortunately, this particular agency is not following through on being good citizens here. They do have agency executives, more than likely extremely overpaid, and their parent department or agency is the Department of Defense, so no wonder they don't want people to know what they're doing, and they just spend a whole lot of money and don't want to be held accountable. Why am I not surprised? So the Defense Intelligence Agency, also known as DIA, is an intelligence agency and combat support agency within the United States federal government, specializing in defense and military intelligence. So more than likely they use basically specializing in defense and military intelligence as an excuse to spend a lot of money and not be held accountable for what they do or what they don't do. That's a big problem. It says here a component of the Department of Defense and the United States Intelligence Agency. The DIA informs national, civilian, and defense policymakers about the military intentions and compatibilities of foreign governments and non-state actors, whatever that little phrase means. It also provides intelligence assistance, integration, and coordination across uniformed military service, intelligence components, basically a lot of fluff. It just means they're spending a lot of your money. The DIA's intelligence operations extend beyond the zones of combat, not surprised there, and approximately half of its employees serve overseas at hundreds of locations and in United States embassies in 140 countries, which is probably why they are overspending on money, but yet they don't really keep our people safe like they are supposed to. An example of that is Benghazi and Hillary Clinton. It goes on to say the DIA is a national level intelligence organization that does not belong to a single military element or within the traditional chain of command. That's the problem right there. When you don't have a traditional chain of command, they can just spend whatever they want, and that's not right. And so that bugs me right there, so I'm not a big fan of that. It says 3/4 of the agency's 17,000 employees are career civilians who are experts, BS, in various fields of defense and military interest or application. I wonder if that includes Edward Snowden, that leaked information about our country and then went to Russia and, as an idiot and a moron and pats himself on the back. So not a big fan of traitors there. This agency obviously established in 1961 under President John F. Kennedy by Defense Secretary Robert McNamara. The DIA was involved in U.S. intelligence efforts throughout the Cold War and rapidly expanded, unfortunately, both in size and scope after the 9/11 attacks, because they kind of had a knee-jerk reaction to that. But they really did not need to expand. If they had just been doing their job and doing it well, and if the FBI had actually caught those people when they were supposed to, then 9/11 would have never happened. Kind of sad there, but that's just how it goes when people don't do their job. But yet they overspend a lot of money, and then they don't want us to know what's going on. Why am I not surprised? The director of the Defense of Intelligence Agency is an intelligence officer who, upon nomination by the President and confirmation by the Senate, serves as the nation's highest-ranking military intelligence officer. Doesn't mean they're special, but they're just appointed. He or she is the primary intelligence advisor to the Secretary of Defense and also answers to the Director of National Intelligence. The Director is also the commander of the Joint Function Component Command for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance, a subordinate command of United States Strategic Command, which is headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska. Additionally, he or she chairs the Military Intelligence Board, which coordinates activities of the entire Defense Intelligence Committee. I'm not a big fan of that. I think there needs to be more accountability, and I think they need to break this stuff up, because I think you put one person in charge of way too many things, and then this is where things go bad really quick, and then they have a huge budget, and they're not being held accountable for what they're doing or for what they are not doing in regards to keeping our country safe. They do make some comparisons in this article to the CIA and some other things. I'm just going to touch on that just a little bit, because this is quite a lengthy article, but I don't want to read the whole thing because it is a lot. It says the DIA and the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, are distinct organizations with different functions. DIA focuses on national level defense military topics, while CIA is concentrated on broader, more general intelligence needs of the President and the Cabinet. Additionally, due to DIA's designation as a combat support agency, that's kind of a joke, it has special responsibilities in meeting intelligence requirements specifically for the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and combatant commanders, both in peace and at war. So it's kind of a BS line to say, hey, we've got our job, you do your job, peace out, wouldn't want to be it. In terms of military services, the DIA is not a collective of all U.S. military intelligence units, and the work it performs is not in lieu of that falling under intelligence components of individual services. So basically, they're on their own, and they don't really care to be a part of our military, which is probably why they have an unlimited budget, which is very concerning. So needless to say, they love to spend money. Military people are no different than Wall Street. I think, in fact, they are worse in terms of greed, because they use their military service and their military job and functions to spend money that is not theirs. So that concerns me with that. In terms of organization, they have, I guess, Directorate for Operations. So the first one is the Defense Clandestine Service. And then they have the Defense Attached System, or Attaché, however you want to pronounce that system, the DAS. And then the Defense Cover Office. Very interesting there. So that Defense Cover Office is a DIA component responsible for executing cover programs for agencies' intelligence officers, as well as those for the entire Department of Defense. So there is some overlap within the Department of Defense, but yet they still don't want people to know what they're doing, especially in regards to how they are spending our money. And that is a big problem, because money matters. They also have a Directorate for Analysis, a Directorate for Science and Technology. I mean, that's just kind of wasteful spending right there. They have a Directorate for Mission Services. Mission Services provides administrative, technical, and I would say different types of support to the agency's domestic and global operations and analytic efforts. Basically, it's a BS department. Not a big fan of that. The DIA does have its own police. That police force was established in 1963. It is made up of federal officers who protect DIA people and property. So kind of interesting there. The DIA police provide law enforcement and police services, emergency response, and physical security at DIA campuses. Their police have 170 sworn uniformed officers that protect and police these 6 sites. I guess there are different headquarters that the DIA has, and so they guard and protect those as they should. The DIA police has 26 special agents that carry out security investigations. They should do that. That is a good thing. They do have to undergo training. The DIA police officers, they are trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center for 3 months before being certified. That's a good thing. I just kind of thought the training would be a lot longer than just 3 months, but who knows? Maybe it's really good training. I don't know. The DIA police, they operate under the United States Marshal's Office Special Deputation and Jurisdictional and Functional Authority within the District of Columbia, also known as DC, aka the Swamp, and that is under a cooperative agreement with the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. So it's probably like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They do have a rank structure in regards to their organization. They have officers, they have special agents that do the investigations, they have a sergeant and a captain. They also have a K-9 unit, a hazmat unit, a SRT unit, and they also have DIA field operations, not surprising there. They do have specific employment requirements and a polygraph. I don't agree with doing a polygraph because anybody can lie and can be really good at it. Also, polygraphs are not good for people that have heart conditions because it can look like you're lying even though you're not. So sometimes people may undergo a polygraph and they have a heart condition, but they may have never been diagnosed with a heart condition, but it just looks bad for them. So, the polygraph, typically those are not admissible in court, so I don't know why they continue to use those because it's a very faulty science. It's very flawed, so technically it's not a science. It's just something stupid that they do. It says, due to the sensitive nature of the DIA's work, all of its personnel, including interns and contractors, are subject to the same security standards and must obtain a top security clearance with sensitive, compartmented information access. Not surprising there. It's just one of those things. I don't think they should be hiring interns and especially contractors for this kind of work. I think that's what happened with Edward Snowden and other young people like him. I think when you just hire people willy-nilly like that, they're not really for America. They're just there for the job, and they are willing to break the law and the rules. And then they flee from justice, and they don't want to be held accountable for the crimes that they commit. So that's also concerning there. In addition to the rigorous background investigations, psychological and drug screening, as well as security interviews, DIA requires that its applicants pass the agency polygraph. To me, that's a joke. I don't really think it's appropriate to do a polygraph for the reasons I just mentioned, because I've met people over the years that have heart conditions, and it's like, okay, a heart condition, that can easily be misconstrued for other things. So, these polygraphs, they are not being conducted by cardiologists. That's the thing. They're being conducted by police officers or investigators, and they are not medical students. Like, they're not medical doctors, they're not DOs, they're not even a registered nurse. So being that the people that are doing these polygraphs are very ignorant and uneducated about the heart and the human body, they are the last people that should be conducting a test like that. So, hence they're very stupid. Says here, the DIA's budget and exact personnel numbers are classified. That needs to change. We need to know what's going on there. Classified information is not willingly revealed to the public or with anyone that does not have a need to know verified status, basically. And we do need to know. Some of this stuff is very ridiculous. Let's see here. It says, in 1994, it was revealed that the DIA requested approximately $4 billion in funding for the period of 1996 to 2001. And that equates to $6.3 billion in regards to inflation, which is ridiculous. It says, however, the agency has nearly doubled in size since then and has also assumed additional responsibilities from various intelligence elements from across the Department of Defense, CIA, and wider intelligence communities. Bull. I mean, they don't need to spend billions of dollars. That's ridiculous. I find that to be very excessive, and we just don't hear really good things about them. So it's kind of like, how come they get to spend that kind of money? Because those are our tax dollars. Do we need to have a secure country? Yes, but they are overspending money, and there is a tremendous amount of waste and fraud that occurs in these federal agencies that don't ever care to be held accountable for what they spend and what they do. So it's better to hold people accountable and have transparency. Obviously, these people don't think that anything really applies to them, and it does. This department does have different spies. They've had some spies over the years. I'm not going to go through that because it's a list and I don't really care. They have spies for the DIA and they've had spies against the DIA. I'm not surprised by that. Not at all. I don't agree with it, but just kind of is what it is. They have had some controversies over the years, and I'm not going to go through every single one of those, but I'm kind of not surprised that they've had controversies, because whenever you have a really large agency that doesn't care to be held accountable, and they basically never have audits, and their budget is hidden, everything they do is hidden, you're going to have problems. You're going to have controversies, and you're going to have things happen that should have never happened. So this is why we want things to be transparent, and we want things to be made available to the public as much as necessary, but without sabotaging the safety and security of our country. And just letting the people know, letting the citizens of America know what the budget is and what they're spending it on, I think is very important, and we need to know those things. So let's see here. It says they have expanded domestic activities. I'm not surprised by that. Let's see here a little bit about their history. I'm not going to go all the way back to 1961, but they do go back to the 1960s. And what you have to remember is that the Cold War really concerned a lot of people, right? So that was in the 1960s. Then in the 1970s, you had these different wars that occurred over in the Middle East, and then dealing with Vietnam, things of that nature. And then you're also dealing with a high influx of drugs into the United States from South America and Central America in the 1970s. And that really hit the fan in the 1980s, which is why President Reagan had basically a no tolerance for drug offenders, and was like no on drugs, like to the extreme, and was for just locking people up endlessly for years on end, like punishing people for drug problems way worse than a murderer or a rapist, which is ridiculous. So that's one way that Republicans go way too far. And I can say that because I am a Republican capitalist, and I think sometimes Republicans, they just over-punish people in the way that they implement or pass laws, and they don't recognize that, hey, a drug offense is not the same as a murder or a hit and run or a rape situation. So we want to make sure that we are not passing rules, laws, and regulations that actually over-punish people, because I personally don't care if someone does drugs. I just, unless they're operating machinery or unless they're operating on someone a lot of people smoke weed these days, especially medical grade marijuana, and there are a lot of people that actually need to be on certain drugs in order to handle certain chronic illnesses that they have been diagnosed with. But if you have this, say no to drugs, like to the extreme kind of thinking, then it demonizes everything that is a substance. Well, even caffeine is a substance. Sugar is a substance. Really healthy red wine is a substance. Are we going to go back to prohibition? No. It's one of those things that even during prohibition, people still have their alcohol. Like, you're not going to stop people from what they really want to do. And plus, it's one of those things that government should not be in charge of vices. And that's exactly what happened with prohibition and things of that nature. So we just kind of need to make sure that we are not allowing these federal agencies, whether they deal with the military or not, we need to make sure that they are not overstepping their bounds, and that they are held accountable for the monies that they are spending, and that they are honest about what they're doing with our money and their work, especially when dealing with military and intelligence, because as the American people, we have every right to know what's going on. Every right. And I'm not saying that we should know every single little thing, because that would probably blow an operation, right? But I'm saying that, whenever something is classified and it needs to be declassified, a red flag goes up in my brain because of that. So it's one of those things that, I do believe in the safety and security of the United States. It's just that there's some things that they claim that is for the safety of the United States, but it's really not. It's to cover up their fraud, waste, and spending and their cushy benefits and their high-paying jobs. Because we're talking billions of dollars per year. Per year, okay? So that is a big problem with this. And just because something is in regards to the Department of Defense or intelligence, they don't get to write all these they should not get to write all these blank checks. And that is what has been happening for a long time. And the problem has been Congress. It's bad enough that they ask for all this money and then it's really pouring salt in the wound when Congress just writes them a blank check and the American people have no say. When we have all the say. Like, we don't report to them, they report to us, the American people. Because the power is with the people, always has been, always will be. But I will go ahead and end this podcast, but as usual, until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. God bless and bye-bye.